Hello, 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 and good afternoon, dear partners. This is Laura Prefontaine, Partner Channel VP at IT Cloud, to greet you today at our webinar about Microsoft Defender and Bitdefender. So, which one to use and how to make the choice and in which scenarios. We have the honor today to have Mr. Carl Eman to present us about both solution and Sylvain Fontaine, who is there to support us with the questions. So don't hesitate. You have a Q&A section. If you open this section on your top menu in the webinar, you'll see Q&A. Just use that section to ask your questions, and we'll be able to answer them during the webinar. But first, Carl, if you can change the slide, I would like to remind you that our altitude convention in Toronto is coming up on May 7th. It's a completely free event for you, partner. So we'd love to see you there. Lots of great conferences, a cocktail, awards, and so on. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so. We cannot wait to see you there. And I will share the link to register in the chat section of the meeting in a few minutes. Also, for you partners who have customers that are migrating to Microsoft 365, we have a great promo for you. You can get free BitTitan licenses to proceed to your migration. This promo is available until June 30th, 2024, or until supplies last. The client must be new to Microsoft Cloud. So any customers migrating from any competing platform on-prem, Google, etc., to Microsoft. And the promo is available for tenants with less than 500 users, and you must purchase a business standard and up to be eligible for this promo. So I will also share the link in the chat to redeem your BitTitan license shortly. So without further ado, Carl, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Laura. Hi, all. Today we're going to compare Microsoft Defender for Business to Bitdefender. Okay, so this is a question I get asked a lot. Which is the better product? And it's very hard for me to say because these are both of my children. I love both products. I know both products pretty much inside out, and I believe they're two great products. But like anything, they have some differences. Now, in some circumstances, one product would be better than the other. In other circumstances, it might be the contrary. So we're going to look at this. And as I was wrapping my head around how am I going to try to show the differences, I put myself back into an MSP context. I was an MSP for most of my career, and I was an MSP before I joined IT Cloud. So I thought, how can I make this make sense through the eyes of an MSP? And what I came up with is this. We're going to cover this webinar on 6 specific points. And these are points that should be important to you when you're deciding which AV am I going to use to serve my clients. Usually an MSP will want to have a single AV across the board for all of his clients. I know there are exceptions, but usually you'll want to have a similar AV so that you can train your technicians. Your technicians can get to know the product. You can actually know the pricing inside and out. You can know the recipe to get it to work perfectly. So we're going to look at each of these aspects. And for some MSPs, protection will be more important than management. For others, pricing is the most important. So I'll let you decide which is the clear winner at the end. And it's not going to be a clear answer for anyone. For some of you, you're going to say, you know what? Defender for Business is the one for me. For some of you, you're going to say, you know what? Bitdefender is the one I want to use. But we'll look at all of these points and try to figure out which one is the best for each of these six aspects right here. So we'll start with protection. So when we look at protection, all AVs have different types of protection packages. We'll start with Defender for Business. So obviously there's the clear AV in there. So I won't even talk about just the AV modules because all antivirus solutions will have the base AV module. So that goes without say, right? But on top of that, Microsoft Defender for Business will add vulnerability management. What that means is You'll get a clear picture of all the patches missing on Windows devices. You'll get all the third-party apps that are installed that have known vulnerabilities. You'll also get a clear picture of what you need to do to update those devices. If there's a misconfiguration in Windows, you'll get an explanation on how to fix it. So you can use that console to secure and tie down a specific client or all of your clients, right? So that's one great aspect. It comes with the package. You also get attack surface reduction. Now, some of you might ask, what exactly is attack surface reduction? We hear about that, but what does it actually do? Well, if we look at an AV, most protections will be based upon two things. The first one, obviously, is known malware. So you get a list, you get a database of known malware, and there are different ways to identify those, so signatures and different types of things. So that's basic. All anti malware solutions offer that. You'll also get behavioral learning, things that are not specific to an actual virus, but they're a weird behavior. You wouldn't typically do set of steps if you're not trying to implement malware. So that's behavior learning and pattern learning, and most AV solutions will also have that included. Now, attack surface reduction is taking that a step further and saying, you know what? We know that the entry point to some of these malwares is these specific services or these specific application. A good example of that is, you know, that with the Office suite, if you open up Word or Excel, you can open up an Excel file that has a macro in there, and that macro could execute code, could try to download something else. So why not block that at source? So attack surface reduction is exactly that. You could tell Defender for Business that you want Word and Excel to not be able to execute specific types of macros or not be able to spawn another software on the side or things of that nature. So that's attack surface reduction, and it does come with Defender for Business. Another thing we hear about a lot is EDR. Now, EDR is starting to be the big trend. Uh, Insurance companies are asking clients to get an AV with EDR. Now, Defender for Business does include the EDR module. I just want to make it clear because a lot of people say, I want my clients to be better protected. And what they do is they purchase the EDR module add on. I just want to make this 100% clear. Just purchasing EDR on its own on any type of AV does not specifically add protection. What it does is EDR will give you more telemetry, more insight and auditing on what's going on. So typically, if you purchase an EDR module for your clients, you should have one of your technicians whose sole job is to actually analyze those consoles. So log in the morning, go to client A, look at the EDR console, have any incidents happen. If they did happen, try to analyze this. Is this the starting point of an attack? What is this? It's weird. Why did this happen at 3 a.m.? So try to analyze those. Typically, typical stuff a SOC would do. And we're going to talk about SOC in a few minutes, but it's typical things that a security operations center would do. So you can purchase EDR, and most of the time that will be required by insurance companies because if your client does get attacked, they want to be able to backtrack it and see exactly what happened. Is the client, negligent? Did this happen because of a disgruntled employee that actually launched this attack? So they want to know specifically what happened, and they're going to ask those clients to purchase an EDR solution so that they can analyze in the backend. But just EDR on its own, it does have the response part, and I'm not going to talk about that right away. But typically, EDR does not generally add a layer of security. It adds more tools for you to add a layer of security. But that being said, it does come with Defender for Business. And you also get the advanced threat security, which is more behavior learning. Different types of behaviors might predict an attack, and those behaviors will be detected by Defender for Business. So everything's included in this one package. Now, if we look at Bitdefender, the core module obviously has the AV, and it does also have the vulnerability management and the attack surface reduction. So all of these are also included in the Bitdefender core module. But if you want EDR, That's an add-on option. If you want advanced threat security, that's another add-on option. And Bitdefender also offers MDR. Now we're going to take a minute to talk about what MDR is. MDR, remember when I was saying EDR, you actually need someone to monitor this. If you have no one monitoring it, it's not going to do anything on its own. Bitdefender has a service that you can pay for that will do MDR on your behalf. Okay. So there are specialists from Bitdefender 24/7 that are going to monitor what's happening at your clients. And I'm sure this has happened to you in the past. You have a client, you've set them up, you've done your best, everything's going perfectly. And then some guy goes knocking on the door, comes into the client and says, "Hey, I do free security assessments." And the client says, "Yeah, well, it's free, sure, go ahead." And then they'll come up with a report and they'll show the client every little aspect that you guys did not do. And that's extremely frustrating because obviously they're not going to show the 99% of things that you did perfectly. They're going to focus on the 1%, the one little thing you forgot, and they're going to focus on that. And then they're going to offer that client some type of SOC, some type of security monitoring. And they're usually going to tell the client, well, your provider currently can't do this, but we can, right? I'm sure this has happened to all of you. It's extremely frustrating. But just know that right now, this is a service that you can offer. You can offer managed discovery and response through Bitdefender. So it's an add-on. We'll explain prices later. It's really not that expensive, and you'll have someone 24/7 monitoring that infrastructure. So if some behavior happens or some connection or any type of intrusion that is detected, Bitdefender will take action on your behalf for that client. We'll explain there's a bunch of preemptive actions that you could allow or deny, contact you, whatever. There's many different ways to manage it, but Bitdefender does offer that, whereas Microsoft for now does not offer that. There are plugins, but they go to third-party software and they're usually a lot more expensive. But Microsoft on its own does not yet offer the managed discovery part. So that's the protection. I mean, both of them offer great solutions. Obviously, here, I'd have to say I would give the win to Microsoft because the core module offers all of the advanced features besides the monitoring part. Whereas Bitdefender offers the core package and then different add-ons, but they go further. So they go up to the actual management. So that's also a great part for Bitdefender. But if we're just talking about protection of the core, Microsoft wins it, in my opinion, on here. Okay. So that's the protection part. That's one important aspect. Just know that both antivirus are great solutions. They're super secure. It's just a matter of who includes more with the core module, whereas add-ons. Let's look at our second thing is deployment. Obviously, when you're going to purchase an AV solution for your clients, one big thing you need to think about is this is something I cannot charge back to my clients. I'll charge the core module, obviously, so they'll have to pay for that AV, and I'm making a little bit of money off of that. But there's no way I can tell my clients we're changing your AV solution because of XYZ, and I need to charge you to do that. And you all know it's going to take a couple of hours per client to do that deployment. So the easier this can be done, the better it is. Now, both of these solutions have different deployment methods. We're going to start with Microsoft again. So the thing I love about Microsoft is it's not actually a deployment. Think about it. In most cases, we're talking about Windows devices, right? So for now, let's just talk Windows. Let's forget about iOS, Android, Mac, Linux. They are supported, but it's a different aspect. But let's focus on Windows because that's going to be 99% of what we're talking about anyways. On a Windows device, Microsoft Defender is already there. It's already there. It's already running as a service. The only thing it doesn't do, it doesn't report back to the cloud and it doesn't pull its security information from the cloud, but it's already there. So in essence, when you go with Defender for Business, you're not actually deploying anything. You're activating something. You're just telling your Windows device, hey, from now on, you're pushing your telemetry to the cloud so I can monitor centrally. Plus, I'm going to give you what settings I want and push that back down to you, and that's what you're going to set. So you're basically just enabling a service. Now, how do you enable that specific service? There are many different ways. First one is GPO. So if your client is very classic in the sense that they still have an Active Directory on premise, most computers are on premise, everyone has access and logs in through that domain controller, then GPO is an option for you. You could use GPOs and enable the modules that way. It's just a simple GPO. Everyone knows how to do that. Second option, if your client is more modern work type and they're using Intunes, well, Intunes is another way that you can enable Bitdefender. So, or not Bitdefender, sorry, the Defender for Business. So, just using a security policy from Intunes, Intunes is installed. It will push down to the computer and say, hey, you know what? You need to enable all these telemetry and now pull down these security settings from the cloud. Another way is a manual script. So there are many different ways to actually deploy. I wanted to specify this because although this might seem like a big advantage to Microsoft, it's not. The reason I say that is like a lot of things, Microsoft is evolving extremely fast. Now we're February 29th today, and I saw new features coming out all last week and even this morning. So there's a bunch of new features coming out left and right. What that means is the way to configure different things evolves extremely quickly. Might seem like an advantage, but think about it. If your technicians are used to working in a single way and they want to streamline that process, it's extremely difficult with Microsoft because things keep changing. So have to keep evolving that process. We're working in this. Me and Sylvain are working with Defender every day. So this is, the biggest part of my job, and I have issues keeping up with it just because it changes so often. Whereas Bitdefender is very classical in the sense that, hey, you have an executable file, you will run this on a computer, and it will install the AV. We're used to working like this for the past 40 years. Super simple. Plus, I can also scan the network and just find other computers that aren't protected and push install down to those computers. So again, another very easy way. So Bitdefender in that sense is more traditional. It's more classical, streamlines the operation. You know exactly how to deploy it. So in that sense, what's the best scenario? One offers a bunch of options, but doesn't seem like it's completely stabilized yet. Like Microsoft haven't decided, you know what, this is the way to do it. There's a bunch of different ways. Whereas Bitdefender has been traditional, it's tried, it's tested and true. So you know this is the process. You can write it down and it's probably going to work next year, the year after that. So you don't have to redo your documentation all the time. Now, as we can see for the mobile part, Defender for Business has support for iOS, Android, macOS, and Linux. Whereas Bitdefender supports Windows, macOS, and Linux, that's fine. But mobile devices is an add on to be determined. They do sort of have an add on for mobile devices, but I mean, it's a third party for the time being. So in that sense, Microsoft, if you really want to protect mobile devices, Microsoft has the upper hand in that aspect. But that's not something that concerns a lot of people. Usually we're talking desktops. So in that sense, deployment, I would have to give it to Bitdefender in the sense that it's more streamlined. Now, important thing to remember here is, as I said at the beginning, Microsoft are evolving extremely quickly and they're putting a lot of effort in Defender for Business. So if you were to ask me this question again this summer, July or August, I bet you that I would have changed my opinion. I'm pretty sure, and we're seeing how it evolves, I'm pretty sure that by this summer, Defender for Business will be super easy to deploy. They're going to streamline. We're already seeing it. We saw it this morning. They've changed something which greatly simplifies the process. So it's getting more and more streamlined. But for the time being, Bitdefender has the upper hand when it comes to deploying the actual solution. Okay. Management. Oh boy, this is where it gets choppy. If management is important for you, so if you're constantly working at creating exclusion, changing security patterns, updating different modules, changing specific things in the security vicinity of your clients, then this is the part you need to listen to, because this part has extreme differences between both solutions. So let's start with Microsoft Defender for Business. Let's take just the example of exclusions, right? Because that's one that we need to do often. A client will call you up and say, hey, this new AV you install works great, but now XYZ software won't work. So you need to start creating exclusions. Well, when you're working with Defender for Business, again, it's the same thing. There's so many ways, and the product has evolved so much that newer ways are set in place, but the older ways are still there. And that's typical of Microsoft, right? Always keeping the old ways of doing things plus adding a new way. So it gets confusing for a little while. And we're there with Microsoft Defender for Business as of right now. So you can still push out GPOs, but that's something typically you won't want to do. You'll want to work with cloud. So if you want to work with cloud, well, the best way to do it is through Intunes. So you can push out your security policies. You can push out your device policies, optional modules, module configurations. You can push that out through Intune security policy. But there's two caveats to that. First of all, the client needs Intunes. And not all of your clients is going to have Intunes. Some might just have Business Basic plus the Defender for Business add-on. So if they don't have Intunes, what are my other options? So that's the first caveat. Second one is this is single tenant. So if I have 60 clients and I want to change a single exclusion on 60 clients, that means I have to connect to 60 separate tenants. Or I get Lighthouse, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But you see that it can make things complicated. A lot of you are going to say, well, we have the partner center. But again, your partner center still needs to connect to each specific client. So you're going to have to go to client A, service management, defender, change your policy, go back to clients, client B, management, defender. So you're constantly going to have to do that. Keep that in mind. Now, for clients that don't have Intunes, Microsoft have come up with something called MDE management. What that means essentially is they've tweaked Defender to be able to read policies from Intunes on its own. So just remember this. This is extremely important. The policies will always be in the Intunes. So you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. It's in Intune security policies. That's where the policies are dormant or they lay there. But then how do you read those? So Intunes obviously can read them, but now they've also tweaked the standalone modules to be able to go read them. And we call this MDE managed. And you'll see that. Let me just open up the console here so you can see, and we'll go through the console in a few minutes. But I can see that from devices. When I have a set device in my Defender infrastructure, and I go to this specific device, I'll see how this device is being managed. So it's either Intunes or MDE, or it will say not available, which means it's either not pulling any policies or it's using GPOs. So I can see here that mine is managed by Intunes. It doesn't have the whole MDE enrollment status. But in my settings here, I can go to endpoints and I can say, you know what, this client does not have Intunes. So I'm going to go to enforcement, and here it says allow security settings in Intune to be enforced by my Microsoft Defender. Okay, so my Microsoft Defender can actually pull the security settings from Intune, and I need to enable this. And there's a bunch of things you need to do. So you need to go through the script and look at all this, and there's a bunch of things you need to enable. But basically, if your client does not have Intunes, you can still push out the policies. And let me show you something interesting. If I'm in here and I configure my policies, so I go to my endpoint security policies right here, you'll see all these policies and I can create the policies right here. So that's great. I can just choose my platform, choose whichever type of policy I want to create, and then create that policy. These policies are created here. I actually created a few last week. So you can see this one was created on February 16th and it was created from this portal. Now watch this. I'm going to go to Intunes. So I'm going to go to Endpoint Manager. And while this loads, remember, enable Defender. Okay. So if I go here, I'm in Intunes right now, Endpoint Security, Antivirus, enable Defender. So regardless of if I create this policy in Intunes or Endpoint Manager, they're still located at the same place and they sort of synchronize. If you want, they're not really synchronizing. You're basically just having two separate consoles to create the same types of policies. So that's one part that can get a little bit confusing. Okay. So another way to manage the Defender for Business is through a program called Lighthouse. Now, Lighthouse, as you can see here, I specified, is the only way to manage it multi-tenant. Unfortunately, again, there are two caveats to this. Lighthouse is only available for your clients that have business premium for the time being. So for the time being, your clients need business premium in order for you to use Lighthouse. Okay. Second thing is that Lighthouse is not yet fully completed. I mean, you can do some management, but it's limited. Think about it more as a monitoring platform. So in that sense, it works great. But as an actual, change of policies and all of that, it's not all that good. So it's really there for monitoring. You can monitor multi-tenant, but doing a lot of the security configuration on a day-to-day basis, it's not quite there yet. Whereas Bitdefender has a single multi-tenant console called Gravity Zone. Everything's done through Gravity Zone. Management of all of your clients in a single pane of glass view, managing of all of your policies is done in this one location. Okay, let's compare both though. So this is the Microsoft one. This is Microsoft Defender Portal. What I love about this, okay, it is single tenant. I'll give you that. That's not great. But on the other hand, it has everything. So it has your secure score, it has your identity score, it has your defender for endpoint, your defender for Office 365, for cloud apps, everything security wise that has anything to do with 365 will all be here in this single dashboard. Now, obviously, today we're talking about the endpoint manager, but I can look at all types of incidents. It can be emails that came in. They can be malware on computers. It can be anything of that nature. I can do hunting on all of my devices. I could create actions and submissions for my technicians to resolve separate issues. I have my secure score. I have the learning hub, which can actually show me how to do different things. So it's very complete. Plus, I have all of my vulnerability management right here. So over here, I'll see which devices are exposed, which devices need change in updates to Windows, updates to third-party software, misconfigurations, everything's in here. So I can see it through a dashboard or I can actually see it step by step through recommendations. And recommendations are very well done. So if, for example, if you say, well, all of these are complicated because my technicians don't really have the skill set to understand all of these, they don't have to. See, let's take an example. Enable local LSA protection. If I just click on this, it will explain why you need to do this. But in the remediation options, it will show you which change to do in, for example, the registry. So just push down this value to registry and it will create it. Okay. And I can see which devices are exposed to this. So it does give you a great console. As you can see, you could do all of your things over here and it shows you your inventory, your weaknesses, timelines, all of that stuff. So great console. I love the fact that it has everything that has to do with security in this one location. Now let's compare this with Bitdefender. Bitdefender, the one big advantage If I go to network, or it's going to ask me to log in here, just give me 1 second, please. Log it back in. And obviously, multi-factor authentication. Now, the one thing I love about Bitdefender's console, obviously, is the fact that it's multi-tenant. I'm managing all of my clients to this one single console. So I have the same thing. I have this dashboard. It might look like there's not much here, but obviously this is just a test tenant, but I would see all of the malwares, all of that. But for all of my clients, right? If I go down here to network, from here, as an MSP, I will see all of my clients. And I can just pick a specific client, go to their computers and take action on those specific computers. So that's a big advantage. I can do all of this in this single console. I don't have to flip flop back and forth from one client to the other. And it's the same with policies. So if I want to do policies, I could just come right here, modify a single policy, and this policy could be pushed down to all of my clients, to just a specific clients, but everything is in there. So I don't need to create multiple separate policies for different things. Everything can be inside the same policy: general, anti-malware, your sandbox, your firewall, your network protection. Everything is inside this specific policy. And it's the same for risk management. So if I go to risk management, I can actually see each client's risk score separately, but from this single console. Whereas Microsoft, I have to log into each specific tenant. So from here, I could just go to the upper right hand corner, pick a specific client, see the risk score for this specific client. Then I also like the explanations that Bitdefender do. So it's still split through misconfiguration of your operating system, vulnerable apps, and user behavior. I have the same thing on the Microsoft side, but look at the different explanations. If we go back to Microsoft and take again this enable the LSA that we had, look at the explanation. Remediation option, they said, well, set the following registry key. All right. If I look at Bitdefender, and I'll just pick one here out of the blue. If I look at this, it actually tells you, well, use the MS Edit, go to computer configuration, admin templates, blah, blah, blah. So it shows you how to create the GPO or just use the edit. And it also gives you a little more insight on why you would want to enable this or not. But the thing I love the most is that in most cases, it will let you fix it automatically. So instead of having to go to each computer and create this, you could just say, you know what? Why don't you fix it? Just fix it. So it'll create a job. It will send that job back to the Bitdefender agent and just tell the agent, you know what? Just configure this setting, please. And then it will eventually disappear once all four affected devices have done this. And it's the same for vulnerable apps. So I can see my apps that are vulnerable and I can see which CVEs I have to implement. Same thing on the Microsoft side, to be honest with you. It's very similar. So if I just cancel out this and I go to my remediations, or no, sorry, weaknesses. And I can see my third-party apps and I'll see the CVSs that are applied to this. And then same thing, it's very similar. Explanation, exposed device, affected software. So again, it's very similar. Just depends on which one you prefer. But the big takeaway here is that Bitdefender is multi-tenant. So it lets you do this for all of your clients from this one single console, whereas Microsoft will be tenant per tenant unless you have Lighthouse, which requires business premium for the time being. So management wise, I have to give this one to Bitdefender. Okay. Personally, I think the Microsoft console is better because it has all of the services in the one location, but I love the fact that Bitdefender gives me this multi-tenant console where I can actually manage all of my clients through this single console. And that's an important part of being an MSP and managing. So Bitdefender gets the win here, in my honest opinion. Let's move on and look at device impact. So that's another important part when you're deciding on an anti-malware solution. You obviously don't want your clients to call you every other minute and say, "Hey, since you've installed this software, my computer's dirt slow. This is not working as fast and this." And we've all been through this. Obviously, any AV solution that you're going to implement on a client will actually drain resources, or it will consume resources, I should say. And they're all the same way. Anytime I want to set protection, I have to pay resources. And that's normal. More security, more resources. Okay, so there's a cost to everything. But the advantage to Microsoft Defender for Business, it's stuck to the core. It's really there inside the core. And in fact, the core system that manages all security features of Windows 10 and Windows 11, which we call the Security Center, is sort of the father of Defender for Business. They're made to work together. Okay, so they were thought to work together. If you're using any other anti-malware solution, when you open up your security center and you go to your protection, it's going to tell you, hey, you're using Security Center, but you're using anti-malware from Bitdefender to actually manage your security. So you can see how a third party needs to sit up top of that and is managed through the security center. Whereas Defender for Business is really there inside the kernel. So that makes it extremely streamlined and light. So Defender for Business has very minimal impact on the performance of a computer, okay? And it's already included with your Windows 10 and 11 core. Whereas Bitdefender has minimal to moderate impact depending on which features you enable. To be honest, it's a very good anti-malware, probably one of the most popular on the market right now. It has minimal impact, but depending on which features you enable, it can get to moderate impact. In our days, is that still even a problem, right? Most of your clients will have i7, i5s, you know, top of the line computers, SSD drives. So, in that sense, it's not even a problem. Here we're talking about your clients that are very conservative and they love their old core duo. You all know which client I'm talking about. They don't want to spend money on hardware. It's working. I don't know if we're going to go through full cloud or whatever. So we're keeping our old computers. They're working. So those clients will be the one impacted by any type of security solutions you put in place. So for those clients, think that Microsoft Defender for Business will have less of an impact on the actual resources than Bitdefender in most cases. For all of the other clients, it's a non-issue. Both of them are very light. Both of them have minimal impact, so it's usually a non-issue. Options. Defender for Business, as I said previously, has most of the options included within the single license. So Defender for Business, standalone or through Business Premium, offers pretty much everything you would want. Okay. There are a few options you can purchase, which is Defender P2. So let me just show you. But they're high level things that usually typically you wouldn't want to do for a small business client. Things like eye protection and things of that nature. So if I look at my one device here, I do have advanced features where I could enable. So if I go all the way up here, advanced features, it's going to say, no, you just have the P1, but you can try this. This will give you application control where you can block certain vulnerable apps. It will give you security baselines where you can have a set of baselines that you can apply to all computers, browser extensions, certificate inventories. So a few things like that. You can begin a trial, but for the most part, you wouldn't need this for your typical SMB. Whereas Bitdefender has a bunch of options. So the first one is disk encryption. With Bitdefender, I could purchase a disk encryption add-on and encrypt the hard drives of the actual clients. Now, first thing that should pop in mind, you should say, well, doesn't Windows do that off the bat? Can I just use BitLocker and lock the hard drives? Well, yes, you can. But how will you manage the recovery keys? If you instruct each of your clients to start encrypting their hard drives, you can be guaranteed that you will lose the recovery keys, and at some specific time, you'll need the recovery keys. You won't find them, and you'll be stuck. Whereas if you do it through Bitdefender, Bitdefender actually pushes down, tells the Bitdefender agent to start the BitLocker process, but then backs up the recovery key in your Gravity Zone console. So that's great. It's very cheap. It's not super expensive. It's around a buck something per computer. So really not expensive. Plus, it allows you to have that whole centralized management. Now, the question that you should ask yourselves right now is, oh, wow, Bitdefender offers disk encryption and Microsoft doesn't? That's surprising. Well, the thing is, Microsoft does offer disk encryption. It's just not done through Defender for Business. It's done through Intunes. So to get the same features, you would also need Intune on your Microsoft Defender for Business side because disk encryption is enabled, but it's pushed down through Intunes. Same a little bit with patch management. Bitdefender offers full third party and Windows patch management. Now, Intunes can offer something I would say not similar. It's more of a manual process. Microsoft isn't fully there yet, but they're getting there. But again, it would be done through Intunes. Now, Bitdefender has the upper hand here because they offer this patch management module where you can actually control, configure, and push down patches for your Windows devices, Windows servers, also third-party apps. So they have an extensive list of the supported third-party apps that you could push down. Bitdefender also offers the mobile add-on, which honestly, Defender for Business already has. And to be quite frank, Defender for Business is much better in the sense that the Bitdefender one is sort of a third-party app. It's still to be determined. We're still working on that part. So for now, let's just say that Bitdefender's mobile is not up to par with what Defender has. Now, is that a big deal? For most people, it's not. Most people will say, you know what? I don't really care about mobile security in that sense. I can install a basic AV, and most mobile devices are already somewhat secured. So it might not be a big deal. What is a big deal is EDR and advanced threat security is not included in the base module of Bitdefender, whereas it is included with the base module for Defender for Business. So if you want to add EDR and advanced threat security to your Bitdefender, you need to pay extra. That's an add-on. So is the MDR. Now, Microsoft doesn't have the equivalent to the MDR yet, so that's one that Bitdefender wins, but it's still an add-on module that you have to pay for. So as you can see in the option sections, Microsoft Defender for Business mostly has all of the features in the one package, whereas Bitdefender has a bunch of different options depending on your clients. But now, the important part. What about pricing? Okay, so here, let me tell you off the bat, in order to be able to compare apples to apples, what I did is I put all of the monthly prices. So don't tell me, hey, business premium is not 35.76, it's 29 something. I know, but at $29, that's P1Y, and you're liable for a 1 year contract. So I wanted to compare apples to apples here. What I did is I compared the monthly price because Bitdefender is always monthly. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other super important thing that I want to say, because every time we do these types of webinars, I get asked this. I get people calling me up and saying, hey, I can get Bitdefender for way cheaper than what you're selling. I say, why is that? Well, I get it at 150 at this other distributor. I tell him you're getting it at 128 at IT Cloud. Remember here, these are the MSRPs. These are not your cost. I'm going to say it again. These are not your cost. These are MSRPs. Your cost, the reason I didn't put cost in here is that you guys' cost is all depending on your level of IT cloud partnership. So you could be paying 170, 150, maybe 120. But just remember, all of the prices that you see here are MSRP. They are not your cost. All right. So let's compare. Defender for Business, I can get included with Business Premium. Now, if you ask me, that is clearly the best deal. The best bang for the buck is right here. Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Not only does it include your Defender for Business, but It includes the whole Microsoft 365 suite, your Exchange mailbox, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. It also includes Entra P1, which allows you to do conditional access. So if we're talking about security, that's the first step. So it includes your conditional access. It includes your Azure information protection. So it includes a lot of things from PureView. So this, for now, is clearly the best bang for the buck. But some clients, either then they're not on Microsoft at all, or they're glad to just run their business basic. So you can add Defender for Business as a standalone for $492. Okay. Again, this is the monthly price. If you decide to buy P1Y and get a yearly contract, it's cheaper. But let's keep it month to month. It's 492. Same for servers. So standalone workstation or servers, 492. That's for Defender for Business. Now let's look at Bitdefender. And before we talk about the bundles, I'll just want to let you know that the three first options here are Bitdefender prices before they actually got scared. So let me explain. The core module of Bitdefender is 295 MSRP. That's not your cost, that's the client's cost. Okay, so it's pretty much on par. But if you want to add EDR and advanced threat security to make it on par with your Defender for Business, now you're adding 495 on top of your $3. So you're almost at $8, whereas Microsoft is at 492 for the exact same thing, right? Remember, Defender for Business includes the core plus the EDR plus the ATS, whereas Bitdefender that was an option. Okay. If you want to add the monitored, so the actual SOC from Bitdefender, that's an additional 495. So the client that wants everything plus they want to be monitored from the SOC, that was, let's round it up, $3 plus $5, that's 8 plus another 5, that's 13. Okay, so it was $13 for the whole shebang, just about. That's a client price. About a year ago, Bitdefender called us up. We had a discussion and we talked about how Microsoft were super aggressive. And they said, yeah, we're coming up with bundles and we're going to be even more aggressive. So now, since I think a little before, by the end of 2023, if you look in your IT Cloud portal and you go to purchase Bitdefender, you'll see something, a new SKU called Bundle Secure. Now, Bundle Secure includes the core and the EDR and the advanced threat security. So that basically is the same thing as what Microsoft Defender for Business gives you. And it's 449 MSRP. So about 50 cents cheaper than the Microsoft one. But hold on, there's more. You want to add the SOC on top of that? You have the core, the EDR, the ATS, plus the SOC, the management for 869. Now I tell you, this is a pretty good deal as well. Just know that this price here, 869, is what most SOCs will charge just for the monitoring part. We're not talking about the AV, the EDR, the ATS, that's separate. Just the monitoring service will usually cost you around $10 per endpoint. Now look at this, 869, you get the whole thing. The monitoring, the advanced threat security, the EDR console, plus the core module. That's a pretty good deal also. And you can add an extra layer, which is called Bundled Secure Extra, which add XDR on top of that. It's XDR for identity. Maybe you don't know what XDR is. It's basically just adding more things that you are monitoring. So instead of just monitoring the endpoints and the servers, you're also monitoring extra things. XDR. So those things here are identity. So either your 365 environment, so your Microsoft Entra, for example, if someone is trying to log in from China at 3 o'clock in the morning, it will be detected. It will go to the MDR and they'll probably just disable that user or force password reset or whatever. You tell them what to do in different circumstances. And it's going to monitor the SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. So if someone's trying to download a bunch of files or delete a bunch of files, that will also trigger an alert and someone will take action. They'll call you, they'll block that user, whatever you instruct them to do. So the bundles here are a very good deal as well. So as you can see, there's no clear winner when it comes to price. In my opinion, if your client is not interested in going the full business premium route, then probably Bitdefender bundles are the best. But if your client is willing, then the business premium is an extra good deal. It's a fantastic deal here. So that's the pricing points. I tried to make it as simple as possible. I know it seems complicated. Remember, you can just give us a call. We'll be glad to assist you with this. Just remember, for Bitdefender, go with the bundles. That's where it makes a lot more sense. And they're very, very good deals. We've already talked about the convention in Toronto. So after that, if you want to evaluate this presentation, go right ahead. And other than that, we are at the question section. So if anyone has any questions, I don't know, Sylvain, if there were any questions during the explanations. There doesn't seem to be any questions. That means one of two things. Either I am extremely boring and you guys fell asleep, or I'm extremely good and everything was crystal clear.
I guess you were thorough, Carl. There's nothing in the Q&A and there's nothing in the chat.
Okay, well, great then. Hope you enjoyed. Yep, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.